warp in 3, 2, 1.
Alright, computer, let's hook up to the local GNet hub and get this show on the road.
Initiating connection to Jupiter GNet Hub. Connection to Jupiter GNet Hub established.
Okay, computer, open up comms to all our viewers and begin transmitting our latest file.
Transmitting John and the spaceboat. The Arm.
Blaze Morrison walked slowly, mag boots barely leaving the asteroid's surface. Small, precise steps, his feet nevertheless disturbed a random pile of asteroid dust, one of many which covered the old megasteel pathways he and John followed. Floating up and then following Blaze for a short while, the throng of glistening, dark gray dust particles found their way back on the surface. Weak as it was, the far-off floor plating still projected gravity even in these parts of the asteroid. The spacer's armored spacesuit was untarnished. Blaze had activated a weak but strong enough personal shield generator. The near-invisible field came to view on John's holocam, picked up by the outlines only when something hit the tall spacer. It was struck by either a random micrometeorite or the usual all-too-prevalent rays of cosmic radiation. The place they were aiming to reach was not covered by any colony's big deflector shields, nor did the first settlers ever employ a force field generator to protect it. Their destination was one of Kaz's lesser-known landmarks, which locals simply called the Arm. "We are almost there, John," stated Blaze, pointing at something big and made of metal sticking above one of the nearby rocks. "See? Those 4 grayish things are the Arm's fingers. Maybe 5 minutes or more, and we'll have cover from the elements." The man then scanned both the surrounding area and John, mumbling something unintelligible in spacer lingo. "What was that? I couldn't pick out what you just said, Mr. Morrison." Aimed his holocam at the spacer, John in an attempt to squeeze the meaning of yet another colorful word from Blaze. The obscure, strange ways these people morphed words or invented new ones was nothing else but fascinating to him and his viewers. "This? I was just blabbering. You really want to know, don't you?" Instead of outright asking, John nodded affirmatively, since he knew spacers often loved to communicate with their hand signs and even nods. He then pointed at his shoulder where the slowly rotating, soon-to-aim-at-Blazer's faceplate holocam stood, and asked, "Our viewers would love to learn more, if it's something you're willing to share, of course." "Sure, why not?" Blaze's faceplate was now transparent, and John's holocam, the Nikon Slipstream 2000, capable of shooting true HD footage in full immersion 128K, caught the spacer's calm, thoughtful smile. The brand new stabilizers installed in his spacesuit had so far effortlessly adapted to John's constant change of pace, and Nikon's integrated filters obstructed any unwanted flashes of light ruining the holo footage. Recording or streaming top-quality holovids while walking on top of a constantly orbited by hundreds of performing landings or takeoff maneuver spaceships or asteroids was not an easy feat. It wasn't John's first time, and he had both the much-needed experience plus the proper gear to pull off said feat. While he waited for Blaze to find a smoother way to translate spacer lingo into easily understandable for the people unaccustomed to fringe space dialects and words, he took another set of spaceship holoslides. Thanks to his masterful control of the light filters, John was able to capture a couple of tiny, colorful painted shuttlecrafts. How could one even record footage or take pictures without partially blocking the stars? He could only imagine how much work would have taken the Photolab techs back in the olden days just to develop one single picture. That was something related to an old spacer saying, one which most Terrans know and cite. Quote, "Kick any asteroid and pirates will scurry from the inside." Blaze, with a fluid, lightning-quick move, pulled his heavy pistol, aimed at something in the near distance, and fired a single projectile. In but a few seconds, the railgun pellet struck something, most probably a larger meteorite or a piece of debris, and blew it to pieces. The spacer holstered his gun and half-turned, tapped the side of his faceplate while muttering the same words, but this time louder and slower, so the viewers could hear it clearly. "Meteor sniping. 'Twas what I said to myself earlier when scanning goggles picked up that tiny basketball-sized piece of debris." He chuckled and then made an all-encompassing hand motion before continuing. "The space around Cav is basically littered with both new and old battle debris. Even though the private companies paid to keep each of the colony's ship traffic safe, I dare say are doing an exceptionally good job. Nobody's perfect, John. That's why we have SHIELD, and all spaceships can count on the data streams being relayed in their mainframes in real time from Cav's navigational command. It's what's kept the numbers of accidents to a bare minimum. I heard in the old days, when this colony was young, spacers flew debris or meteor patrols, shooting down or towing bigger objects safely away from the asteroid. Is this something you were told stories about, Mr. Marson?" "Please, Blaze is enough. I am a spacer, and we are not great lovers of formality. As for your question, yes, I do know many stories about the old Duster flights. After this trip is over, I'll link you some of my best Duster tales my family told me. John, we should speed up our leisurely pace. I'd rather spend most of my time inside the arm than outside. Moreover, those personal shield drainer of ours will not protect us forever. Sooner rather than later, they will overheat and turn off." Both walked quickly around the rock, and finally, the arm stood before them, extended upwards, its 4 clamps aimed into space. The docking arm's bulky yet somehow still elegant-looking construction was littered with odd dents, scraps, and even showed signs of battle damage. Covered with dark green anti-radiation space paint, the 5-decade-old structure was left here as a testament to Terran ingenuity, determination, and engineering prowess. John's Nikon hungrily devoured the surroundings. He only had to focus its center hollow imager at one or another oddity, and those, he had to agree with Blaze, were aplenty around here. First was the base of the arm, probably more akin to a heavily fortified bunker than a simple docking station. The oblong structure was almost invisible to the naked eye. Only after his guide pointed it out did John notice how its builders managed to use the surrounding terrain and camo paint to conceal the structure. According to Blaze, the insides of the building were only accessible either through some obscure death trap of a tunnel or the metal superstructure of the arm itself. Of course, the spacer knew how to find the service entrance and had the necessary security codes to open them. Second were also the concealed pillboxes, designed and built by the first settlers to protect this spot, prevent any Star Trooper from advancing and capturing this then single entrance to the colony. Each of the small nano-concrete installations looked like a random rock. One of the empty gun emplacements even resembled a crater. Last but not least were the odd pieces of slag and glassed asteroid dust, a clear indication that from the moment the Terrans settled here and attempted to build their homes, live long and prosper, they were forced to viciously defend themselves. Blaze was silent, and the metal pathways avoided any of these damaged areas, which made John think the spacers built it long after the arm had outlived its usefulness. It was a memorial now, and yet just by looking at its imposing size, he had the feeling that this was a very much intact and quite operational monument. They had to temporarily switch off their mag boots so that their long leap towards the arm would be possible. The pathways bent metal surface behind them, both creating a tiny dust cloud of asteroid dust which floated after them and then, after spreading over a great area, disappeared from view. One could play with the light filters of their holocam and include or exclude the glow of specific stellar bodies. John had done so, and since this is not his first visit to Corvora's system, he had all the necessary data. Pre-programmed his Nikon's memory, only light coming from the local star and engine exhaust from starships was visible. He, of course, made sure to dim the latter. Plasma glow from one spaceship too many, and the stream might turn into a constant, unnecessary battle with the settings of one's PDA. Soon enough, with the aid of their grapplers, both men reached the arm, boots quickly maglocking to its armored surface. Blaze walked slowly now. Even though they weren't in any serious danger, a misstep could mean floating off, away from the asteroid's surface. That the colony was a big, always rotating around a center-axis asteroid, many a tourist had to learn the hard way. After a rescue shuttle picked them up, the careless sentient was then charged with the fuel cost. Simple and not that harsh a penalty. This way, a lesson was learned, ensuring that person would never run and hop around without observing basic safety protocols. John's personal spacesuit was also fitted with engines, though the tiny plasma drives had a limited fuel reserve and were only to be used in a pinch. Both were Terrans and did receive plenty of space survival training during their childhood, Blaze even more so since he came from a spacer family. What people said here on the fringe borders was spacers were born in a spacesuit, lived their entire lives in one, and then were buried, still wearing it. John was unsure whether that was 100% correct since he'd seen spacer suits or pieces of them on display in their homes. Much akin to how samurai armor and weapons had their special honored place in warrior households, the mural-covered, uniquely designed spacesuit told the story of one entire lifetime. Some spacer clans preserved a dozen or more of these relics inside one special hall, where only close friends and family members had access. He'd heard rumors or something called the Last Mural, painted on the postman upon which lay the suit. It depicts how the spacer who wore it perished. John already took detailed holoslides of Blaze's spacesuit. Everything was already uploaded on his GNet profile. No H-logger would ever miss an opportunity like this. Moreover, he was promised an interview. This time he was determined to avoid his past and somewhat spookier spacer interview experience. The mural he picked out back then resulted in old Sonny sharing a grisly tale about the thing he disliked in this universe the most: derelicts. Blaze Morrison assured him that what he was about to tell him was not in any way, shape, or form connected with ghost vessels, but the alien thugs, their boss, and his oh-so-intimidating message. Therefore, John kept taking holoslides of his surrounding, obviously not when Blaze inputted his secret codes, carefully followed his guide in when he opened the door leading to the inside of the arm. The spacer used a disposable power pack to juice the service entrance, keypad, and internal mechanisms. After entering, they deactivated the protective shield belts, and Blaze led John towards the top of the monument. The insides of this docking arm, although not in use, were still kept clean, and there was some power left in the grab plating. Passing through the sealed door of an airlock, they soon entered a small observation dome which had breathable air and inside felt comfortably warm. To John, this place looked exactly like the command room from which the arm was operated. Now, after all the equipment was removed, the space was utilized by tables and chairs welded to the floor plating. A picnic area? exclaimed John with open faceplate, pointing at a stasis box bearing Blaze's spacer sign. I figure we can grab a couple of my grandmother's pelmini and sip some kvass while our shield belts cool down. Then I can tell you about that tale. The spacer waved his hand over the stasis box, and after it clicked open, he reached inside, produced 2 plates of piping hot pelmini. Next, from inside the picnic stash, he eagerly snatched a large bottle of kvass with 2 space cups fitted with lids and straws. Only after he placed all of this on the table, filled both cups with the dark aromatic liquid, did Blaze finally relax. John, like the good, respectable H-logger that he was, had a clean spork in one of his pockets. After drinking 1 entire glass of kvass and cleaning his plate, he asked, "You mentioned that story of yours was somewhat related to the goons we had the joy of meeting with yesterday in the roundabout. Might I assume it was quite a lot to do with the property they demanded you return to their boss?" "You assume correctly, John," Blaze answered only after devouring the contents of his plate. "Now, I will tell you the story of how we acquired the property of one dishonest businessman. Imagine, if you will, one elaborately planned and executed grift, which culminated with me and my crew."
Okay, computer, that's it. Disconnect from the local GNet hub and set course for Kavora.
Disconnecting GNet. Setting course. Kavora. Spooling engines now. Initiating. Jumping in 3, 2, 1.